All right, good afternoon. Today is November the 11th, 2023. I'm out here with my longbow olive oil, a Wesley Special 50-pound full, and a little unnamed puppy. Still got no name. Uh-oh. I didn't ask y'all to come up. Wait a minute, now this is more than I asked for. No, I didn't ask for any of this. They're getting all over my arrows. Y'all get down. Get on now. All right, now I didn't ask you to come, y'all come over here now. I was playing with the little puppy. All right, I've been thinking about keeping the little one. Quit now. What have you got? I know what that is. I know what it is. Yo, go on now, go on now. Skinned out a deer yesterday. And I gave them a lot of food. I gave them the, when I pulled the lungs out, the lungs were totally a mass of jelly because the arrow went through the lungs. And these dogs just loved it. And I gave them some here and some there, different things. And I think they were thinking that I might be going to give them some more deer meat. I'm just guessing. But I've been thinking about keeping this little one right here and training her as a deer tracking dog. Now dogs do that anyway, you know, they naturally track. But I think that you could work with them with being on a leash and all that kind of stuff. And I think that this little one might be a really good deer tracking dog. Well, as it was with the deer yesterday, I didn't need a deer tracking dog. The deer we found it. Even though we did, the blood trail ran out, and I guess we kind of prematurely gave up. But we started just looking around, and I came up on it pretty quick. Okay, back to the bow. I can't shoot the bow yet. My arm, I hurt it doing push-ups. And then I hurt it again after it was feeling a lot better. I was lifting something out of the back of the truck and it popped again. So it's been about a week and a half that my arm has been hurt. And so I thought I'd try to shoot a little bit, you know, and it still hurts pretty much to shoot. But I think it's good to do a little bit and begin to get the arm, you know, back to the idea of, you know, but it hurts when I pull it, and when I let go especially, the letting go shocks my arm and hurts. So olive oil will have to be lonely a bit longer. I got the weather has turned off cool here. It's chilly now, and it rained a little bit this morning, and I really didn't feel like getting in the deer stand, and maybe I'll go this afternoon, maybe I won't. I've got an excellent, oh goodness, and I'm sleepy too apparently. I've got an excellent, I've been getting up 3:30 and 4:30 in the morning. As you get older, sometimes you just can't sleep in the morning. And, but I've got an excellent spot picked out. A couple of live oak trees in a grown-up field they are dropping, their acorns are turning black. Now, with the live oak trees, the acorns are green to start with, but when they get really ripe, they turn I would call it like a black olive color. And that's when they are the best. They're even good to eat when, I'll pick one of them and take the shell off and put it in my mouth, and they're not bitter when they turn. And that's what you want. And I got a place where there's 3 live oak trees in a row that are dropping those black acorns, and got a couple of bucks grapes under it, and it's just hot. The trick will be to catch the wind right. And I've got my Millennium T100 tripod stand set up at that location, back in some trees and all, and it's well hidden. They won't see me. Okay, but what I wanted to talk about today, and I don't know how long it's going to take to talk about this, but it's the big subject that pertaining to Jesus, and that is who Jesus is. The controversy over who Jesus really was is what led to his crucifixion. Jesus said in a number of ways that he was God. And then at other times, he referred to his Father in heaven, which is confusing. How can he both be his Father and not be his Father? Because he said, my Father is in heaven, but then he acted like he was the Father sometimes. And one of the ways he acted like he was the Father is that he referred to people as son and children. Son, be of good cheer. He was calling them his son. So there are a number of times that Jesus appeared to be saying he was God the Father, and he was God the Son, and you couldn't figure it out, and you still can't figure it out. You're not going to get to the bottom of it. But a lot of people say that they can't see Jesus, they can't see coming to Jesus because they can't understand who he was. And like I said, the Jewish leaders at the time, they understood that Jesus was claiming to be God. And that's why they actually gave him the death penalty when they took him to trial. Because they had a law, a long-standing law in Jewish law, that no man could make himself into a god, or no man could claim he was God. Well, the reason for that law was because in the ancient world, it was standard practice for powerful emperors to call themselves gods. For example, the pharaohs of Egypt were considered to be gods on earth. They claimed to be the Son of God, and they claimed to be gods. And that's why they did those elaborate ceremonies where they got embalmed and all that. But as far as the lower down people, the slaves, the peasants, that they were told that the Pharaoh was God. And if they ever even saw the Pharaoh, it was at a great distance, up on top of a pyramid or up on top of a palace, and he was adorned in his headdress and all kind of makeup, and they were told that he was God, and so that's probably the reason that the ancient Jews, they were used to people claiming they were God, so they knew no man could be God, or they thought that no man could be God. So if a man in Israel if a Jew started claiming to be God, like say one of their rulers or then they would get the death penalty, because they were trying to avoid people saying that they were God. So here comes Jesus and starts acting like God. He starts doing miracles. One of the things that Jesus did was he allowed people to worship him. That is, to bow down to him. If you look in the Bible, there's a lot of different times when Jesus would cure somebody of a horrible disease, and they would fall at his feet, and the Bible says, and they worshiped him. Now Jesus, if he was not claiming to be God, he should have said, oh no, get up, I'm not God, you don't bow down to me. But Jesus, in not even one instance, ever told anybody, you're incorrect to bow down to me. Therefore, he is said to have accepted worship only due to God. So without saying anything, he was saying he was God. And there are many other instances of Jesus saying things that appeared that he was, if not outright saying it, accepting that it was understood that somehow he was God. But then there's the problem of, well, how can and he also said, my Father in heaven. And at other times he acted like he was the Father. And this throws a lot of people off when they try to understand, and they want to understand who Jesus is, and they want to accept him. Okay, I thought of a way, or I say the Holy Spirit showed me a way. And this whole thing started because somebody shot me a comment and said that they were confused as to how Jesus could be the Father, could be God, and at the same time be a man. And this came to me after thinking about it. It is said that Jesus is fully man and fully God. How can that be? Well, I thought of the movie that Peter Sellers played in, where he played 3 different roles. And the movie was called Dr. Strangelove. Peter Sellers played the American president. He played Dr. Strangelove, and he also played the British Royal Air Force commander that was in the movie. Played 3 parts. And of course he was dressed for each part when he played it in the movie. Now it occurred to me, why couldn't we look at Jesus the same way? That Jesus was playing at least 2 parts. Okay, he made himself, or God made himself man, fully man, but at the same time, he was God. So it is said, a common statement among Christians is that Jesus was fully God and fully man. Okay, so how about the statements that Jesus made? Sometimes it looked like he was referring to his Father in heaven, and sometimes it looked like he was saying that he was God in heaven. This is what came to me. If he was playing 2 roles, like Peter Sellers played in the movie Dr. Strangelove, whichever role Jesus was playing, he would say what would be appropriate for that character. So if he was playing the part of the human, the fully human, then he would say, my Father in heaven is greater than I, which he said. But if he was playing the other role, which is God, which he was also, then he would say, I have authority on earth to forgive sin, which only God can do. So I say that this might be the reason of the confusion about who Jesus was. It depended on which role he was playing. So he was the same, he was a man and he was fully God. So when they crucified him, for example, one of the things he said was, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they're doing. Well, see, that's a statement that Jesus, the man, would say, because he was there being crucified. That was the man role. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they're doing. Okay? But then when he was playing the God role, for instance, when he told the religious leaders, before Abraham was, I am. Well, that totally confused them, because I'm saying that he was speaking as God then. I am is the sacred name of God, and the Jews knew that. And here's a man saying, before Abraham was born, I am. He was saying that he existed before Abraham and that he was, I am. Well, that's why they hated him, and they couldn't accept that. That drove them crazy. A man saying that he's God. So if you look at the different things, when you read about Jesus, try thinking about it that way. What role is Jesus showing you? His fully man side, or is he showing you his fully God side? Now, one time he was called in to a house, and it was a packed crowd. People were all around him, and he went in there to preach. And there was some people that came up with a man that was paralyzed, and they wanted to bring him into the house in order for Jesus to heal them. They couldn't get into the house. So they climbed up on the roof of the house, and those houses had tile roofs, and they removed some of the tiles, and they let the man down on ropes through the lathing that holds the tiles up, right there in front of Jesus. And Jesus said, son, now there he is again. He's in the God role. He's calling this man son. This man wasn't Jesus' son, but he said, son, thy sins are forgiven thee. Well, he was playing for the purpose of the religious leaders. He was poking them in the eye, in a sense. He was saying, now I'm going to play the part of God here. He didn't say that, but he was doing it. Not only did he have the audacity, which only God can do according to them, and understood, to forgive the man, but he called him son. Okay, so they immediately thought to themselves, how can a man forgive sin? Only God can forgive sin. Well, the man was still laying there. This was going on in the minds of these people. And Jesus knowing everything as his role of God, who he was, he said, why are you reasoning in your heart? Why are you thinking that I can't forgive sin? And he told them this. He's still as God. So he's speaking in his role as God. Well, just to show you what is easier to say if you're God, he's saying, what would be easier, to say your sins are forgiven you, which means the man would have been healed, or to say, rise up, take up your bed, and walk out of here. And he told them, to show you that I have the power to forgive sin, he told the man, take up your bed and walk out of here. The man took up his bed, rolled up his sleeping bag or whatever he had, and walked out. So in that case, Jesus was acting in his role as God, which infuriated them in that case. In other cases, he was acting in his role as the man. So when you read the stories of Jesus, that might help to explain how it's possible that Jesus could be both man and God. Now, about his dying, well, pretty much common sense will tell you, let me grab that arrow from that dog. Let me have my arrow. That's a good puppy. You can't have my arrow. Well, common sense tells you that God can't die. A God can't die. That's one of the things about being a God. You can't die. So here was Jesus playing the God role and the man role. Well, we know men can die. So when Jesus was crucified, I'm suggesting that he was being crucified in his part as the man. He was a man, Jesus was. And they killed him. They really killed him. The man part of him was dead. But the God part, you can't kill a God. But the God part, they couldn't kill, which that's the spirit part. They couldn't see that part. So he dies. He's 3 days and 3 nights in the tomb. And as he said, I have the power to give my life. He's talking about giving his human life, but I have the power to raise it up again. Well, that's nonsensical. I have the power to give my life, but I have the power to take it up again. I have the power to give my life as a human, which I am, and that human body of Jesus was dead. But the God part, which can't die, raised him up after 3 days, and they were put back together. Now, when Jesus did present himself in his resurrected body, he was slightly different. The disciples weren't really sure it was him. So that would indicate that the resurrected body was slightly different. It was a resurrected body. It was no longer a human body. Now, the body that Jesus had then was moving in and out, going through walls, going to heaven. It was a resurrected body. Now, when the disciples doubted, that weren't sure that it was him, he said, look, here's the holes in my hand. Here's the hole in my side. And they knew it was him. Now, Thomas, when he heard that Jesus had presented himself to the other disciples, he said, I'm not going to believe it. And they told him, man, we saw the holes in his hand. We saw the hole in his side. And Thomas said, even though the disciples saw him, except Thomas wasn't there at that particular meeting, he said, I won't believe it until I see the holes myself. So when they were together and Thomas was there, Jesus appeared again. And he said, Peter, look at the holes in my hand, and here's the hole in my side. Put your hand in it. And then Thomas said, listen to what he said, my Lord and my God. And he fell down at Jesus' feet, worshiping him. He believed then when he saw it himself. Okay, and Jesus said, blessed are those that believe, that essentially believe in me, that have never seen me. He was talking about the believers now. We believe these things about Jesus. We discuss them. We try to figure out what it all means. And he said we are blessed because of that. I accept that blessing. That I've never seen Jesus. He was 2,000 something years ago. But I still believe the eyewitnesses that said those things. So maybe that will help explain how Jesus could both appear to be God and then appear to be a man. The whole story makes more sense to me that way. And I will tell you that I never put all that together until today. The whole thing came together when I was trying to figure out how to answer the question is, how could Jesus be God and man? How could Jesus talk to his Father in heaven? It was in his man persona that he's talking to his Father. And at the same time, how could Jesus be saying, I forgive sins, which only the Father could do? It doesn't answer all the questions. I don't know. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, the Trinity, is very complicated, and I can tell you that this explanation helps me right now see how it could be that Jesus was appearing to be God, and in other instances he was appearing to be a man. I'm saying he was like an actor playing two different roles. Instead of like in Dr. Strangelove where Peter Sellers played three different roles. I'm saying this helps me to understand it. I realized that this was a very herky-jerky explanation. Maybe it even sounded crazy, I don't know. But it makes sense to me somehow, now that I beginning to look at it this way. And now when I look at Jesus, when I read the Bible and look at the different things that Jesus did, I'm going to think to myself, hey, was he playing in his God role, which he was, or is he playing in his man role? And I'm going to test these different things and see if this explanation might help me to understand. All right, I'm going to show you how good I can shoot my bow right now. That's as far back as I can pull it. And I'm not going to let it go because it jerks my arm. But I'm not giving up. Oh, one other thing I did want to tell you. I know this is long. I did these videos about this deer decoy. And I decided it was pretty dangerous. But why does this is actually a spiritual thing. Why does this decoy work? Okay? It works because it makes a deer think that it's a deer. And a deer doesn't scare another deer. A man, they look and they say, hey, that ain't the normal thing we see in the woods. That's one of them two-legged things that shoots at us, and they run. This doesn't scare them because it looks like another deer. Now that might be an explanation as to why Jesus made himself a man. Because it says in another place in the Bible that you can't look on the face of God and not die. It will kill you. Burn you up. Well, that might be why Jesus made himself into a man. It was a decoy. It was he could come out down to us in his manly form, and we would not be afraid to look at him. Now, if God came down, it would burn us. God can't do that. We can't look at God. But we could look at a decoy of God, you might say, of Jesus making himself a man. So that God wanted us to see him, see how he would be if he was a man, see how we should be if we see Jesus and we look and we say, now this is how a man would be if God made himself a man. And of course, who wouldn't like to be like Jesus? You know, a humble, totally humble servant. His only concern was to help, and he loved everybody, even his enemies. And when Jesus said, love your enemies, that doesn't make sense to us. But being God in the form of a man, he could love his enemies. And that's why he died on the cross. He didn't die for people that were already saved, that were already righteous, as he put it. He was dying for people that were not believers. And it says that he died for us even while we were yet sinners. So maybe that picture of the decoy not frightening deer will explain why Jesus chose to morph into a man and be born as a human being. All right, that's what I got to say. That's probably the toughest subject that there is in Christianity. How could a man be a God? All right, this is Gardner Israel signing off.